This is Mitch, and welcome to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I'm with Ben Sturgill, and he's from New Hampshire, been around a couple of places, Ohio, whatever, but he's living in Florida right now. And this guy's really we're going to put him in the entrepreneurial section because, you know, this podcast specializes in real estate investors, entrepreneurs, motivational and inspirational. So I think he's not a real estate investor. However, he has done his share of real estate investing. What he really does is he trades IPOs, or this is initial public offerings, online, and he also does some day trading. So for those of y'all that are interested in that, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're mostly going to delve into the mindset of the entrepreneur and how you get started and the confidence and everything it takes to jump off that cliff. You know, like I'm going on my own. I'm going solo. And you fire your boss. We're going to be talking about that. Right before we start, Ben, just bear with me a second. I got to pay homage to my sponsor, taxfreefuture.com. If you do not have a tax-deferred or tax-free entity in which you are growing your retirement or your finances, you have no idea the size of the tool you're missing in your tool belt. Please check out the 37 videos at taxfreefuture.com. You just have to fill out a little bitty tiny piece of information. We will not beat you up with it. We just want to know who you are. And we'll open up the 37 video vignettes. It's quite amazing. And you won't believe what your financial advisors are not telling you. We're going to tell you what they're not telling you. We're going to tell you why they're not telling you. And then it'll make perfect sense and you can choose which way you want to go from there. But it's definitely worth looking into. All right, there you go, Ben. I paid the bills. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be with you, Mitch. Thanks so much.
Hey, well, I appreciate you coming on. Tell us a little bit, the cliff notes. Where are you from? Where you been, and how did you get to where you're at? And then we'll jump into some deep questions.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I grew up in the Midwest in Southwest Ohio. The video doesn't show up. I'm about 6'8", so grew up in a basketball family. Played basketball growing up. Ended up going to New Hampshire to play college basketball there. That's where I met my wife. After playing college basketball, went overseas and played pro for several seasons, and that was certainly good. Amazing for me, I had these great mentors in high school that were school teachers, but they taught me about investing. They gave me a great book. I'm sure so many people have referred to it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where you get the first concepts of what it means to have assets and liabilities. And, I saw these two teachers doing so well, and my parents who were teachers not doing so well financially. And that's really just kind of what set me on my course to start understanding investing, and real estate certainly being a part of that. So I rode that basketball train as long as I could. And then when that was done, I had this time overseas playing professionally where I really just dove into investing and understanding it. And that's really where I gained a lot of information, knowledge about real estate investing, was overseas. While I had this time playing ball. By the time I came back, I had a little bit of money in my pocket, was looking to get into investing, into kind of making some of those investments. Real estate was one of those. Started several small businesses in my 20s. And now that I've moved on from New England to Florida, I have since divested of those businesses, sold my real estate, and now live in sunny Florida and get to trade full time. So it's been a nice transition, especially if my kids have gotten older. I get more time for them.
Wow, so a lot covered there. One is you were very fortunate to have those kind of mentors in your high school, because that's kind of the territory where you forge who you are, and you had some good mentors. How important was that?
Oh, it was vital. I believe for so many people, it's really about worldview, like how they see the world around them. And for so many folks, it's about exposure. And so for me, I had two parents that were great. They loved me. They were hardworking, blue collar folks. They're both teachers, but didn't know a thing about money or investment. And so I just had no exposure to it. And it wasn't really until I started working for this other couple who were teachers, and they owned a farm just because they wanted to. They had their dogs run around that farm. And I just got to see, contrasting how much better they were doing financially, how much more savvy they were, how much they even talked about money. We never talked about money in my house. And so it was just so vital that I had someone there to ask questions to and to ping them with. They were so fundamental in my life. And I was just very grateful, not that I sought them out, but that they were there and I saw that opportunity and I took it.
So I'm interested in this. Did you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad first and then start noticing the differences in this family? Or had you noticed the difference and then the book was brought to you?
That's a great question. No, they brought me the book. They saw I was a hard worker, and they were just very inquisitive. Hey, Ben, glad you want to work on the farm. Glad you want to help us out with this stuff.
Oh, so
What are you saving?
The family that was the farm is the one that introduced you to the book.
Yes. They gave me the book. They were asking me great questions while I was working for them. And a lot of people just aren't interested. They could see I was interested. They were asking me what I was saving for, why I was working hard. And as I talked to them more about my interest, they said, hey, check this out. They gave me a little bit. I ate it and I enjoyed it. They gave me a little bit more. And before you know it, I was begging them for anything they had to offer me.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting because you read the book and then you started noticing the differences in your family and their family. And it was the same that was in the book, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, Robert Kiyosaki's father is in education, limited income. And I saw these folks enjoying the farm, sitting out, drinking tea, making thousands of dollars in their portfolios. And I said, I got to figure this out.
Wow. It's kind of like when you buy a certain car. I'll just use an example. You buy a Corvette, you notice Corvettes on the road. You read this book, you started noticing these different dichotomies, so really interesting. I came from the same kind of background as you, hardworking, great parents, man, couldn't ask for anything more, but didn't have a clue about entrepreneurship really, and never talked about money. Not that they were avoiding it or they were afraid of it. I don't guess it never dawned on them. It wasn't the center of their goals. They weren't, they just weren't money motivated for whatever reason. I don't know. They knew they had to make a living, but so when you go off, I also want to make a comment. So you're out there and you're doing your thing, but you're not just doing your thing. Like so many entrepreneurs, you invested your spare time knowing that basketball wasn't forever. And you invested a lot of time in research and delving into what comes next and what's plan B and getting educated. So many people don't do that. What pushed you to use your spare time that way?
Well, I think it is a mixture of probably three things. One was boredom, because when you go from playing collegiate basketball to professional basketball, all of a sudden this 4-course workload is off your plate. And coming from parents who are teachers, I love to learn. I'm a lifelong learner, just always consuming and wanting to learn more. And I enjoyed what I learned and studied in college, but then you get out and you have nothing to fill that gap. And so I internal desire to just learn, one. Two is this recognition that, hey, when I got back, I was going to have this money from playing. And one of the biggest things that my mentors taught me, they showed me this scale of these, about the value of compound interest. And they said, Ben, if you could invest $2,000 from the age of 18 to the age of 30 and never invest another dime, you would have more retirement than if someone started at 30 and went to 60. And that lesson, I just saw that table in front of me where they gave me this with the book, and it just blew my mind. I said, I have to be able to invest early and let compound interest do the work for me. And so I was really motivated by recognizing I was young, and so I had a lot of time ahead of me and money to be used to invest. And then thirdly, I, as you said, realized basketball was not going to last forever. I was good enough to play overseas, not good enough to go to the NBA, and you're one injury away from having a career change. So I wanted to prepare for that whenever it came.
Say that formula again about compound interest.
Well, they just showed me this really basic chart, and it said, here's two guys. Here is Ben and here is Steve. And it just so happened to be, my name was Ben too. And they said, hey, if Ben invested $2,000 from the age of 18 every year to the age of 30 and stopped at 30, and Steve started investing at $32,000 and invested every year from 30 to 60, Ben would still have more money when they retire at 65 because of the compound interest of the money already invested from Ben. And they just showed me this. I mean, you couldn't deny the facts right there. Compound interest, 7% a year over the next 35 years for you to retire. And Ben, in accumulation had only invested, $24,000, and that made him a millionaire when he was 65. And I said, I'll have $24,000 when I'm done with this. I got to be wise about where I put it so I could get that compound interest to work for me.
Heaven forbid you put in a little bit more in your early years when you're doing good. Heaven forbid you pay extra. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I want to say something else too, and I want to kind of plug the sponsors here, taxfreefuture.com. If compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, I don't remember who said that. I think it was Einstein. If that is true, or if it makes an impression on you, then add this to the back end of that bumper sticker, and that says, and investing tax-free or tax-deferred may be the ninth wonder in today's world.
That's right.
So take that theory that he just said and then start investing early, but try to do it in a tax-free or tax-deferred environment and compound that effort. So
absolutely. Yeah. My mentors kept banging Roth IRA, right? Like have your tax deferred assets grow, pay it on the front end. And that was so helpful for me to hear early on.
Okay. So here's the new rule, Ben. Next time you talk about compound interest, you also add the thing about the IRA and the tax deferred or whatever tax investment vehicle. And then you talk about taxfreefuture.com. Okay.
I got it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Got to pay the bills.
Okay. So what's a day in a life like you now, you went through, you bought the real estate, you suffered through being a landlord, you did all this stuff, and then you sold it and but I would like to know what a day in a life with Ben Sturgill looks like today. Tell us your routine.
That's a great question. I'm up early because part of one of the services I provide is a day trade. So I'm up probably about 4:30. I was up at 4:30 this morning. I have 3 little boys, 5, 7, and 9. So I'm trying to beat them up. Not physically, but literally.
Beat them up, but get up before them.
Exactly. Yeah. Cause they like to try and, get up before me. And so I'll get up about 4:30. I like to spend about a half hour, just waking up to the day, that quiet in the morning. I pray, I read my Bible, I try to meditate, just think about the day a little bit and really start with this idea of just gratefulness. I'm just very grateful. I'm a very blessed guy to have what I have. And I want to just reflect that heart of gratefulness and really start my day, fill myself up with that and just a appreciation for all that is. I go to the gym about 5 o'clock. I like to work out for about an hour. Trading can be stressful at times. I like to stress my body before I stress my mind. It tends to help. And then, I get back around 6 and I start doing my research in the markets, what's happening overseas, what's the headlines, what's the things that are moving the S&P 500, because I'm going to take a day trade on that as the market opens. So I'm doing research on that. I am preparing emails for my members and generally kind of getting ready for the day. About 7:55, I stop. I take my boys to school. We ride our bikes to school. They just have a school a couple blocks down the road. I get to kind of walk them up to the door, give them a hug and send them off. It's a really important time for me. Come back and kind of catching my wife right before she goes to work and kind of get to give her a hug and pray for her for the day. And then I just take that half hour again before the market opens, see what's happening in the markets, prepare my trade of the day for 9:30. And then just dive in from there. Throughout the day, the trading day from 9:30 to 4, I'm, kind of scanning here and there, seeing what opportunities present themselves, maybe doing research for upcoming IPOs that I'm going to be trading. Might have a lunch out with friends, try and connect with somebody because I work from home and I'm an extrovert. So I like to give someone a call or send someone a note. And then by 3:34, when the market closes, I shut down. My boys are home. We get to go outside and play for a couple hours before dinner. And I usually end up taking one of them to some sports event that night for basketball or baseball or whatever. So I'll get to bed early, with my wife and do it all over the next day. What time do you usually go to bed at? I try, the boys usually go down about 8:30. I try to spend about an hour with my wife. And I like to get to bed about 10.
Okay. The reason why I'm so interested is, and I'll take a second here, is August the 1st, I quit smoking and drinking at age 58.
Good for you.
30 days later, cold turkey, no disaster, no intervention, no anything. I'm highly functional, just, had grown into a more excessive habit and I was handling it, but it was becoming a bigger weight and I had things I wanted to do. So I decided I could go no longer with that anchor and go where I'm going. So through a lot of prayer, almost 2 years of being afraid to take on the challenge, I took on the challenge. Then I started working out 30 days later, just 2 days a week. It was really the most wimpified workout ever because I hadn't worked out in 40 years. Used to be an athlete. Then 30 days into that, I went on the keto diet. I've lost 27.2 pounds today.
I see that shirt hanging on you.
Yeah, then yesterday, no, no, then the first of this month, I got inspired by somebody. It's funny. Uh, I'm not, it's funny how the Lord works, because I just started getting up at 4:30. It's funny because you hit the number right on the head at the beginning of the month. I had always had this belief, and I want the go-getters out there, or the wannabe go-getters out there, to listen up. And then I want you to chime in on it. I've always had this belief that you can almost measure your entire day by what you get done by 10 o'clock.
I love it.
But if you haven't done anything by 10 o'clock, that plane's not leaving the runway very good. It might crash. They got all kinds of planes now, and flight control's busy, and they don't have time for you, and like you're just stuck on the tarmac. So I used to, as a rule, I was at it by 6 o'clock, or 6:30 at least. But as we're entrepreneurs, you're an entrepreneur. When we have time, what do? We fill it up with more. So
Oh yeah.
I decided to start getting up at 4:30 myself, and I've tried it. It's really not that bad. I think the key is that you do have to go to bed a little earlier. And part of what I measured by was, what am I getting done between 9 o'clock and midnight? Not a damn thing. I'm getting a lot of TV in. You know what I mean? Another mental decision, like too much of this, and not enough reward for it. So I started changing hours. I'm amazed at how much I can get done now by 8 o'clock. I mean,
Oh yeah.
gosh. Now you have kids to get off to school and everything. I don't have any children at home. So I have that full, 3 hours. It's amazing. And the phones aren't ringing, and it's quiet. I also wanted to let you know that I absolutely noticed your commitment to Christianity, and that you take a time to give some time to it. I could not have accomplished the quitting smoking and drinking cold turkey with no help, no pills, no patches, no nothing. I did that. I physically took the steps, but I give that to the higher power. I asked for it for a long time. And so I'm glad to see your walk,
Yeah, well, I appreciate you mentioning that. I mean, it's at the core of who I am, and I certainly feel like there's been a lot that's been accomplished in my life that I've been very grateful for. But I think when I keep that in perspective of who God is and what he's given me, then my response to it isn't a pride or an arrogance. It's a gratefulness and a desire to give to others because I've been given so much. And that just allows me to actually enjoy life in a way that is significant, seeing myself for who I am, not who I'd like to make myself up to be.
Right. So, because I've noticed a lot of really successful people are the ones that have longevity. I mean, there's always people that are successful to a point, but if they're not living by a certain set of rules, or trying, because we'll never make it, right? We'll never make it.
Sure.
To stay with the whole big 10 commandments. We'll never make it. But just think, if you tried to live that way, you would have a smoother life than you would if you don't, because breaking those rules causes chaos. And if you are better at not breaking them, then you have a less chaotic life, and then you can accomplish more. That's how I see it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say even trying to aspire to live in that way. For many years, I think I was just religious. I think I was just trying to do it because that's what I was supposed to do. And for me, in finding a deeper faith, and I know it's not what we're here to talk about, but that's why I practice that gratitude in the morning, because I want to do it out of a love and a gratefulness, not out of an obligation and a need. And in the same way, my wife wants me to give her flowers because I love her, not because if I don't, she's gonna be mad. And when I can live out of that gratefulness, it both creates a desire in me to do the right and good things, but it also creates a deeper enjoyment in doing them. And that's the heart and attitude I try and bring to it.
Yeah, and I was trying to get to the same point, was that you can lessen the troubles in your life. All of it's caused by us, just about. I mean, there's still car wrecks and plane accidents,
Sure.
things, but so this is exactly what we were supposed to talk about, because that's your mindset, and we were here to talk about mindset. If that's part of it, then that's get it out on the table. So did you ever make a conscious decision to start hanging around different people?
Yeah, I believe I did. I'm not sure I actually said, hey, here's the day I'm going to hang around different people. But again, for me, I grew up in a really hardworking blue collar family. My dad's side's from Kentucky. That's where I spent, who I spent most of my time with. And they come from the farm, and the hollers of Kentucky. And just, you got to love salt of the earth people. But you also realize what you're not exposed to. And so my wife, who is just an amazing woman, our father is in business, and even dating her in college, I got continue to be exposed to entrepreneurs and to salesmen and to people in the world who are growing their money and doing something with money. And the more exposure I got to folks with different ideas and things I just recognized grew my worldview, the more I wanted to be around those people. And so I'm not sure I woke up and said, hey, I got to go change the people I'm with. I got to go find more people to be with that can, give me this view and this experience and that experience. And the more folks I talk to, the more their experience shaped my own. And I didn't necessarily have to go and do that thing. I got to learn from them. And I just kept adding those folks and certainly learned the value of mentors in high school. And I just kept adding mentors, folks in real estate, folks in investing, folks in entrepreneurship, and very specific. Sometimes we think mentors are folks that need to shape our whole life, rather than just being like, no, here's someone that knows something about this thing and they're going to mentor me in that thing. And I'm not going to talk to them about their marriage. Right.
Well, this is a theory that I heard not too long ago. I mean, you need to have a mentor all the time, but not of the same subject. 6 months you have a mentor for this, you get a handle on that, or then you move to a different mentor to a different part of your life or a different part of the business aspect that you want to accomplish. But keep changing. Maybe there's always one life coach at the top if you're fortunate enough to be able to afford two mentors. A lot of people can afford one. But I also find, that I thought that was very sharp of that person to say, I always have a mentor, but I don't have them for very long. 6 months, 7 month increments. I get it. I got it. I can move on to the next one now. And it's not to say that they don't circle back sometime if they need a refresher course, but
sure.
I thought that's a great theory. So have you had a lot of mentors?
A lot, and that's one of the things I think about mindset is that, people want to help. I find generally that people want to help. And when you go to someone and say, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I see that you have success in what you're doing. I'd love to pick your brain about that. Can I buy you lunch? Can we talk about this? And you come prepared with questions that show that you're interested. Someone has perhaps given their life to this whole thing. And then you come with a passion to know more about it. Generally, people want to help you in that way. And so I have picked up so many mentors over the years just because they have knowledge and experience that I want, and I don't want to have to pay for over my life with losses or, I learned most things the hard way. So I'd love to learn it from them the hard way and learn what not to do. And I just generally enjoy people. So at the very least, I get to have a lunch with an interesting person, right? At the very most, maybe becomes a lifelong friend and someone that I can go to, as you said, circle back in 6 months and say, hey, how you doing? Let me ask you about this. What are your thoughts here? And really to make it symbiotic in the sense of they help me with their information experience. And I help them by being a friend and caring about them.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons that I still do this podcast. I didn't start the podcast because I started it for other reasons, mostly monetary reasons. I learned that the podcast was way more than the monetary aspects or equal to the monetary aspects. I get to talk to a lot of intelligent people and usually it's up to me to, if that I want to make that relationship go further, that I forward the relationship or make some offers to meet next time they're in town or next time they're in town. And I make notes of them and reminders in my calendars if there's some really cool people that I would like to know better. Because it's about network, right? I mean, all the cliches, network is your net worth and all that. You can tie it to finances, but you can also tie it to your well-being and the balance of your life, having balance in your life. So if it sounds to me like you have a pretty good balance, and that getting up early is part of that balance, because if you didn't get up early, you don't have any time to yourself, especially with 3 kids, a wife, and then the work obligation. Let's talk about the book that you're giving away. I want everyone to go to, I'll give you the link to get to it. It's over in the show notes, reinvestorsummit.com/Sturgill, STURGILL. And you can get a free book. It's called IPO Jackpots. And tell us about the book. First of all, Describe IPO.
Sure. Well, so IPOs are initial public offerings. They are companies that are privately held, and now they're coming to the market and they will be publicly held. So anyone, everyone could buy a piece of that company. And as a former, entrepreneur, I'm perhaps still entrepreneur, and real estate investor, what appeals to me about IPOs is that, in the same way you might do research on a company and say, hey, is there market opportunity here? Is there potential for me to enter and to take market share? Or even about real estate, is this a good investment for me to own this, to run it, to manage it? I find similar with IPOs in the sense of I can do the research and say, hey, is this a company that I want to own a piece of, and I want to own a piece of it early? And so a lot of the same research I used to do to be able to evaluate my business or real estate opportunities, I now get to bring to IPOs. And we've heard the names of IPOs that have kind of hit the market, big names that just come out for the first time, and people get excited about those. And so I love to do the research. My background, undergrad, is in history, and my master's is in teaching. And so I love doing the historic, just the research on these companies to be able to ask the question, is this going to be a good investment? And if so, I would be excited about getting in early. The book really walks through 3 strategies that I have found over 10 plus years of trading IPOs to be really effective in terms of how to profit from them. Because oftentimes people just trade them because they know the name. Oh, I know that name. And they buy it, and that doesn't always make it a good investment. And so I really try and give people the knowledge they need in this book to be able to understand the strategies I use to say, hey, we believe these to be the most effective ways to trade IPOs for profits rather than just name recognition.
So you teach people how to research these companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. I walk them through, hey, here's the 3 key moments in the life of an IPO that you need to look for profit. Day 1, when they trade, right, and they are publicly available for the first time. Step 2, oftentimes when options become available on them, and then step 3, when all the insiders who hold shares are allowed to sell those shares. That's called the end of the lockup period. And we walk through those 3 key moments and say, hey, here are strategies in these areas that will really help you, and here's the research you need to do to figure out if it's going to benefit you there. And of course, in my service, I offer all that research because not everybody else is getting up at 4:30. So
Okay, so that brings us to the next point. You do offer a service where you help train people or educate people on what you're doing. I think it's kind of interesting. So one of the services is a subscription where people get to watch you trade live online on the IPOs, and they get to see what you're doing, see your moves. They get to see the good and the bad and the ugly, right? You made some money, you didn't make some money, whatever is going on. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it's a live feed of my account in terms of what I'm doing and what I'm trading. Again, my parents were teachers. I have a master's in teaching. I believe you learn by doing. And so when I can show them my account and I can walk through a trade, explain what I'm looking at, explain why I'm buying it, explain what I'm, where I'm looking to sell it, there's that difference between kind of giving a man a fish and teaching him to fish. And I really want to empower people. And then, the thing about that I would just say is that it's an amazing feeling when you gain a new skill and you before looked at a chart and just saw candlesticks and ups and downs and lines and charts and it made no sense. And then someone gives you the eyes to see it by teaching it. It just feels powerful of, I know what's going on here. And now I have the knowledge to do something with it to better my situation.
That's great. You also offer the same kind of service, but in a different arena, where you also like to day trade, and there's a subscription so they can watch you day trade, see your moves, see what you bought at, see what you sold at, see how you did, and I guess learn why you chose that company and why you bought when you did and why you sold when you did.
Yeah, the day trading service, I just try to simplify it as much as possible, right? Where there are tens of thousands of tickers out there, and everyone tries to find the right one and to know when to trade and what to do with it. I stick with one ticker over and over and over again, right? It's the SPY, the SPY, it's the S&P 500. And every day I look at the same indicators and say, these are the things I'm looking at, and it's going to make me make this trade on it today. And here's why. And gosh, just this morning, man, I alerted people at 9:35 of the trade, and I told them why. They got a video at 6:30 explaining the pre-market, an email at 9 talking to them about what trade we're taking. I alerted them at 9:35, the trade is happening. And that trade right now is up 40%. So you caught me on a good day. what should I say?
So
But yeah, people who like to day trade, they like that action.
Here's an easy question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but what's the most you ever made on a trade? And how long did it take?
Ooh,
no,
that's a great question.
What's the most you ever made on an IPO, and what's the most you ever made on a day trade? One day.
Let's see. If the most I've ever made on an IPO is $19,000. Okay. And the most I've ever made on a day trade is $7,000. And, again, for me, I'm pretty conservative with my, there are people who have made more because they go in bigger. I have money management rules that kind of backstop me, because otherwise I just feel like I'm gambling.
That was one of my questions coming up. So hold that thought right there.
Yes, but I believe in base hits. So when you can make base hits, right? A lot of folks get in trouble because when they invest, they think, I'm gonna have that grand slam that's gonna triple my account. And friends, that's just not how it works, right? When you can have base hit after base hit, those things, increasing your account by 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, continually adds up over time, right? Versus the high risk grand slam you look for that might not work 99% of the time. If you have any money left, it's not going to make that much. You probably just get back to even. So other than that, it's just a mindset of is this gambling or is this trading?
I was going to ask that question, but you just answered it. So here's the hard question. What's the most you ever lost on an IPO, and what's the most you ever lost on a day?
Well, I've lost before. I've lost $15,000 on an IPO. And that was really the thing that made me kind of jump in and say, hey, I need to have my stop losses in place, right? You learn to become very disciplined in your trading because pain is a great motivator. The pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of changing. And I'll tell you what, losing like that will cause you enough pain to say, all right, what are my rules? So I've also lost $5,000 on a day trade before. And man, that was really pretty much the whole position. I went in at a $5,000 position. Ultimately, it expired, worthless, and that was that. Yep. And it was a real bummer.
All right, that's cool. So I would really like to thank you for taking the time to be on. I could probably talk to you all day long. It's pretty interesting what you do. I think it would be interesting just to follow you. I mean, I'm probably more inclined to myself just watch the day trade thing because it's more of an immediate answer, I would guess. I don't do good waiting and watching it go like this. It's tough. Crumble.
It's tough.
So I'm getting in the morning, I'm getting out in the evening, and I'm going to know what happened. Okay, that would be good for me. Pretty cool. So go to REInvestorSummit.com/Sturgill, Sturgil. Ben has a podcast. You can also learn more about the podcast over there. I don't know, you can get your free book, IPO Jackpots. If Ben, if you have any speaking dates or you got anything new come up, the show notes over there is evergreen. So be sure to let our people know, let Julie know if you got something you want to add, or if something's passé, pull it out and we'll put something else in there that's relevant. But I like to keep the show notes relevant for you. Do you ever speak anywhere?
Yes, actually, we do investor summits for our members, and then for others outside. We have one coming up here in February in Orlando, and I'll be speaking there, talking about my services. So it's really a great place to get kind of. I'm not the only trader at our company. We have several more, and actually, most of them are better than me. And so they're going to be speaking. I'm going to be speaking, and we try and do that a couple times a year. Okay, so the weirdest question of all. Are you wearing any pants? I'm wearing shorts because I live in Florida. So, that's what I bought when I moved down here. Shorts is good enough. I want to see this. Yeah. Can you stand up and walk over to the corner? 6'8". Sure. Yes, sir. So this right here is a 7-foot bear I shot in Nova Scotia. And yes, for perspective's sake. As we say in Texas, that's a tall drink of water right there. That's right. All right. So, absolutely right. I really want to thank you. I'm going to tune into your podcast to see what's going on. And you guys go to REInvestorSummit.com/Sturgill. Please check out my sponsor, taxfreefuture.com. The little 37 video vignettes there is really eye-opening.
You can start with a little bit of money. And the biggest question is, if I start with a tiny bit of money, 200, 250, what the heck can I do with it? Believe me, I've seen people turn this 250 into a lot of money using some real estate strategy techniques. Who knows? Maybe you can get in with Ben and get on one of his subscriptions and learn how to do the same thing through online investing. But either way, it's eye-opening what you can do. If someone says, well, there's not much you can do, then turn the page and find someone else that says there's lots of things to do and see if one of them fits you, So go to taxfreefuture.com, please. That's about it, Ben. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Mitch, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
One last thing. What would you say to people that are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur but just haven't taken the leap yet?
I would say that mindset matters, right? And so desire has to be there. If you desire to do it, I believe that it's a matter of putting the right people around you with the right information in your head, and then just having enough guts to jump, because you're never fully ready for it. No one's ever ready, but you can be ready enough to where you have the confidence in yourself, the confidence in the people around you to help you, and just the desire. I mean, entrepreneurs grind, sometimes it's a grind, but if you wake up and you're willing to put in the time with the people around you and grow yourself, success is possible. I've seen it with so many people in so many time frames. And so, check that mindset first, and I think it all goes from there.
Right. I'd like to add one thing. For those of you that have an opportunity right now, but you're scared or it's just not the right time, opportunity tends to never knock when you're ready. It always knocks too late or too early. It's hardly ever perfect. So get in the jumping mood if you want to be an entrepreneur, because you're going to have to answer the knock when it knocks, not when you're ready. So
absolutely.
There's my 2 cents. All right, man. Thanks for everybody out there thinking. Thank you for stopping to get you some Ben Sturgill. And be sure and get your IPO jackpots over at reinvestorsummit.com/Sturgill, Sturgill. This is Mitch Stephen. We out of here.